2 and 1. All right, welcome back to week 4. Actually, it's episode 4. I don't know if it'll be week 4, but I guess it's week 4. It's episode 4 of There Will Be Banter. We lost someone, but we definitely replaced him with a check mark. So for those of you who know what the blue checks are, we got one. Anyway, take that, Nick. Let's bring in my fellow banterers. We have the retired CIA spook, Ron Moeller. How are you, sir?
I'm well.
We have the left's lovable gun-toting liberal, Veronica Lopez. How are you, madam?
Most excellent.
Outstanding. And coming out of the bullpen to replace Nick Guy, we have a very average civilian. Kristina Wong. How are you, madam?
Thank you. The most okayest civilian reporter.
The most okayest civilian reporter who has managed to purchase through all of her reporting efforts that really large TV right behind her. If you could just look at that. Reporting.
It's really big. You can't tell. It looks like the size of my hand, but it's much bigger.
Exactly. It's really just the lens. Yeah, it's all what's that word? It's all perspective. It's just, it's an optical illusion.
Exactly.
All right, so tonight we have a few things to talk with everyone about. One is pretty much, if the internet could shut down, everyone talks about things shutting down the internet. I would imagine this kind of did with the whole cancel Netflix hashtag. But before we get into that, I would like to talk about, with the return of the NFL and the ongoing playoffs through the NBA, there's been a lot of, to me, it just seems like a lot of orchestrated demonstrations to either cause attention, which I know that's the motive, but it just seems like it's not really doing anything but landing pretty flat. And then on 9/11 last week, we had a playoff game in the NBA where the players, despite it being 9/11, still knelt. Now, I bring this up because in the face of all of this, also taking place last Thursday was the first game of the NFL season where the Kansas City Chiefs played against the Houston Texans, and there was a demonstration prior to the game kicking off where it was the players on the field interlocked in arms, and the fans booed. And there's a lot of conversation on why did they boo, because it had nothing to do with the flag, et cetera. There was some confusion amongst others like J.J. Watt of the Texans. My opinion, the reason they were booing was not what the fans were doing. It's in response to the Black Lives Matter organization, which over the last month has lost significant popularity in terms of polling. You can review any poll to see that it is the popularity is declining amongst the organization. It's not the Black Lives Matter movement itself. It's just the people pulling the strings. So, Ron, before I throw it to you real quick, I want to make this point because I feel like outside of the politicians in this country and the actors in Hollywood, I don't think there's a more detached group from American society, despite being ones that really come from some of the lower socioeconomic areas. Once they get to this level, it seems like they are one of the most detached groups in our country from what is actually going on in society. What say you, Mr. Retired CIA spook, Ron Moeller?
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't been watching any of the pro sports because it doesn't seem real. The stadiums are fairly empty. I know the NFL's got social distancing, so what they had 10% of the stadium
something
filled.
Like that, yeah, in Kansas City.
It was but I mean, I think Americans used to enjoy whatever sport is your, tickles your fancy. It was a form of escapism. We were able to go view it either on television or in person in the stadium or the arena. And we looked at awesome athletic feats, the competition, the sportsmanship, our favorite players, that sort of thing. But I think the players, as you say, they're very detached from reality. Somehow they think the adulation, I guess is the word, that the fans, that the audience pays them and the cheers, that somehow they think they have some sort of innate social leadership abilities or capabilities that, no, you don't. I'm sorry. And I mean, I can, King James, their old James LeBron, the largest Chinese agent of influence in the NBA. And I mean, talk about a very detached person.
Yeah.
No reality. The football players are just, I think we've only had one football player who actually stands up for free speech, what he believes, and I'm sure the locker room was a fun place after his teammates found out about it, but I don't want to sort of ruin the surprise.
Right. Well, so you referenced Alejandro
Thank you.
Villanueva, the Pittsburgh
I was doing a brain
Steelers.
fart. I couldn't remember his name.
No, I got it. Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman. He went to West Point. He was actually a tight end at West Point. He went there, commissioned into the Army, obviously, served some tours.
Army Ranger.
Yeah, he was an Army Ranger. He was actually awarded the Bronze Star for performing rescuing some soldiers under fire.
With a V, not an admin
exactly.
Bronze Star.
He got a real Bronze Star, the one with the V, not the ones handed out to those who hide out behind computers. Like, that's another story. But so he was the one who the Pittsburgh Steelers, to kind of bring some backstory into this, they all agreed to put a name of someone on the back of their helmets. And Alejandro Villanueva decided to put Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash's name on the helmet, who was awarded the Silver Star for his actions in Iraq. It's been trying to be upgraded, or not upgraded, but essentially we're trying to get him the Medal of Honor at this point. So he did that to bring awareness to the situation. If you read through the story, it seems like his coach, Mike Tomlin, knew about it, but the players, despite that, agreed to do one thing, and Alejandro Villanueva decided to do this. But getting back to the NBA real quick, I just want to point out that like Ron was saying, you have certain players who just feel, based on their platform, being that they are in the National Basketball Association, obviously several million people watch every game or whenever they play. The problem is you have a lot of these players making these political statements or statements in general, but only 20% of them are registered to vote, which, if you're going to do anything in this country through political change, you need to at least be able to cast a ballot to do so. So, Veronica, with everything you just heard from myself and Ron, what do you say?
So I kind of touched on this on the one-on-one podcast that you and I did.
I remember. Yep.
So me personally, I understand how, I personally don't care for sports. I have made a really strong effort to learn about football and hockey because my boyfriend enjoys both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to be a supportive girlfriend, but beyond that, I could give a shit less, right?
That's amazing. Good for you.
But from the political standpoint, right, just from a social standpoint, I find it really interesting that this attitude towards the politicizing of sports has taken on such a negative connotation when it comes to Black Lives Matter. But we've had no issue with the national anthem or flags being flown or the Blue Angels flying over or politicians being go whatever the hell team, having the players at the White House, having soldiers out on the field. It's been political, right? We have always mixed government and sports together quite a bit.
Especially football, absolutely.
Yeah, since 9/11, right?
Yeah. So it's part of the Guards' budget, if you look at it.
Yeah, we spend a ton of money on that, the whole thing, right? So, but with that, I think for me personally, looking at it from just a outsider looking in, right, with no investment in sports, a lot of these guys, football, for instance, is 70% Black.
Yep.
70% Black athletes. And a lot of these guys are affected by the things that are happening in our country right now. A lot of them do come from humble or low-income neighborhoods. And they do have family that are, again, directly and disproportionately affected by a lot of the things that we're seeing, in these communities, especially in low-income urban communities. So to say that they have no stake in this is really hard for me to buy into, because they do. You have these kids that are getting, one of the things that you and I talked about, they're getting scholarships to get the hell out of the ghetto. They're going to college, and then they're getting drafted into the NFL. They're really not that far. The separation is maybe 6 years, 7 years, 8 years tops from them living in poverty to being in the NFL. So I struggle to see that. I also believe, my personal belief is that if you have a platform to say something, if you have the ability and the visibility to say something meaningful, you have a moral obligation, a moral responsibility to. So I want to finish what I'm going to say with a quote that I really like by Lance Briggs.
Chicago Bears, what up? Yeah, I know Lance Briggs.
So this
University of Arizona Wildcat, for those who didn't know.
So this is a tweet that he posted on September 10th. There's a segment of Americans who have an ability to compartmentalize their affinity for Black athletes as a source of entertainment, yet remain apathetic and indifferent to their plight. And that is how that pretty much sums up like how I felt about the whole thing. So
that's fair. And I always revert back to Jason Whitlock, an African-American columnist for whatever he does now at this point. He works for Outkick. But anyway, most outspoken individual probably about the Black Lives Matter movement, but he always constantly points out that the NFL is the largest supplier or producer of Black millionaires in this country, right? That's what he points out, because it ties into what you're saying. Like, this is an outlet for them, okay? Without the NBA or without the NFL, for sure, because it's the largest sports organization we have and the most popular. It gets people like Jason Whitlock, as he said, it gets them. He got a scholarship because he could play football. He wasn't good enough to get to the NFL, but it's below that, right? The football provides this opportunity for so many, and so many of them happen to be, as you say, Black Americans. So that's why what he talks about is when the NFL succumbs to an organization that is not popular and is losing popularity amongst the American public, like the Black Lives Matter organization, for those who can't separate the two, that is what I think is drawing the boos. But I want to move on from the NBA portion of it, because I think this is more on the NFL side at this point. Because the NFL started, it's going on right now. The NBA is the back burner. Them kneeling on 9/11, I think, was just an awful optic to put out and to present. It's the one day you probably shouldn't do this, despite the fact that you were kneeling literally the entire playoffs. Like, one day, like, not doing it is probably going to cause more attention, and then you could explain why. But Kristina, let's finally bring you in off the bench to replace the world's most okayest Green Beret and podcaster Nick Guy. We now have the world's most okayest civilian reporter, Kristina. What do you think about all this?
So I actually don't watch football, mostly because I don't have cable. I don't have local TV. I don't have cable. I haven't had it for years. I do play fantasy football, though. So I'm vaguely familiar, with who the players are. I'm aware of the controversy. It doesn't affect me personally because I don't have to, watch these displays of like standing or kneeling or being in the locker room or whatever. But sports is a hobby for people. It's something that people enjoy to get away from stress. Politics, my job, I follow politics. Sometimes I just want to get away from it. And my escape is working out, is going to the gym. Yeah. And as anyone who follows my Instagram knows, I'm a huge fan of Barry's Boot Camp. That's
also a big fan of trying to get a leg tuck for the Army ACFT. I know that.
Basically just to, prove people wrong, and that, yeah. Anyway, exactly. So, a lot of the trainers at Barry's Boot Camp, they're very liberal, and a lot of my friends are liberal, and I don't care, and I get along with them fine. I love all the trainers there. I follow them all on Instagram. However, I'm really glad that they don't espouse their political views in class. And they could. I mean, I've been to classes in San Francisco, in Boston, even Sweden, where they're very liberal. And they could. I mean, there's some trainers who at the end they give a little message of what's going on in their life and ask for prayers, and I really appreciate that they don't inject their politics in the class. You know, they post on Instagram. You know, they talk about how they hate Trump. You know, and that's fine. But I don't want to go to class and be confronted with their political views and have to be put in a position where I show support or I don't show support. I just want to get away. I just want to focus on something else. You know, just for like an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think I agree with you. Even though the sound's been skipping, I did hear you, Eric, say that, you know, a lot of these guys are millionaires, and you know, I think they have a huge platform that they can use in their personal time. They can donate, they can volunteer, they can bring awareness. I like that. I think Kanye West, I think he donated, I could be wrong, but I think he donated college tuition to George Floyd's kids. And then something like that would be great, just volunteering or bringing attention to inner city schools. I'm not saying they don't do this, they could do this, but you know, there's plenty of things they could do without subjecting something that should be relaxing and fun to you know, divisive politics.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is because I can't remember what year it was started, but we never used to broadcast the national anthem prior to football games starting. Like that's a fairly recent trend. And the reason these things and these demonstrations take place is because the TV networks are willing to show them. So until they don't show them,
we needed more people to fucking join the army after 9/11, man. We gotta pump up
Actually,
those numbers.
You know what? She's probably, you know, that may not be the company line, but that's probably the real answer behind that. All right, so I get it. And what what Kristina is drawing attention to is what I think Ron touched on as well, is like sports is an escapism, right? However, politics and sports have been intertwined since we go as far back as the 1936 Olympics, when Jesse Owens did his thing. Then you had the Black Panthers at the Olympics holding up, you know, the fist.
Mexico City, 68.
Right. So that happened. Politics and sports has always been intertwined. When I went and did my political science degree, I remember I signed up my final year for the first official edition of a class called Politics and Sport. And I still remember the professor, Dr. View, great woman, great individual, fucking big Oklahoma Sooners fan. And I just remember sitting in class like, did I really never notice this shit? Because I really never did. Like, it's because it wasn't so overt as it is now. But when I've learned what she was teaching and I learned all those examples, and I just realized, I mean, let's look at Muhammad Ali. The man went to prison because he refused to participate in the Vietnam War. Like, and that is my correlation with kind of what Ron was saying when it comes to LeBron James. Like, Muhammad Ali and what people try to paint LeBron James as of today, these men are not the same. They are not. LeBron James does not remotely have the ability to form a sentence on the level of Muhammad Ali. And he is probably the most richest athlete we will ever see, based on, well, outside of Michael Jordan. And he's a horrible carrier of this torch that Muhammad Ali ignited years and decades ago. And I think that is the problem, is that you had men like Muhammad Ali who are willing to sacrifice their careers to do what they actually believed in. We don't see that from these athletes. These athletes are not sacrificing anything by taking a knee outside of Colin Kaepernick, right? We can.
I was about to say.
Colin Kaepernick's right. But what I'm saying is, Colin Kaepernick was not.
What? A mediocre quarterback who?
Yeah, Kaepernick had a good run in San Francisco. Don't get me wrong. He was a good player. He got to a Super Bowl with Jim Harbaugh. I understand that. But he's not he's not LeBron James, and he damn sure wasn't Muhammad Ali. So my point is, Kaepernick took the knife, and now everyone thinks it's safe to do whatever they want to do, and that's fine. I'm all for it. I'm just saying what Ron and Kristina kind of touched on is that you have so much opportunity outside of when it's the national anthem or for whatever it is, to present and make your case to the American people, to be in your communities. And I know that there's tons of athletes that do all this without any attention focused on them because they're just doing what they want. But when you have those people like LeBron James who come out and they throw gasoline on a situation, I can't speak, throw gasoline on the whole Kenosha, Wisconsin thing. He immediately came out without ever seeing any of the other actual videos that actually supported the officers in that case. That's the problem, because we're in a culture, and it's actually part of the quote from the Cuties thing is like, we don't know. The quote I was going to read for the Cuties thing applies perfectly to this. There's nuanced discussions that are meant to encourage, and that the fast twitch social media has completely squashed. We don't have conversations about nuance anymore. We just react. Veronica, is that kind of, am I right? Okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And
I
I completely agree. And I think for me, right, like, we're going to look at this very differently. We're going to look through this in a very different lens in 20, 30 years from now, because when it was Martin Luther King, when it was, Malcolm X, when it was the Black Panthers, when it was Angela Davis, when it was Muhammad Ali, they were on the fucking FBI watch list. They were not revered back then.
Probably on Ron's radar, right, Ron?
Probably Ron. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, Eldridge Cleaver, there we were.
I saw your mustache twitch. You know something. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like ultimately history is going to look back on this and just really it's going to be decided what this meant in time further down the road. I think it's hard to see the forest for the trees right now because we're in it,
Oh yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of performative activism that's happening and it's fucking obnoxious. But I genuinely think, in my heart of hearts, I genuinely believe that the majority of people are honestly speaking from a place that, hey, this means something to me, and if I have an opportunity to say something now, I should. I feel like Colin Kaepernick was probably, I don't know, maybe he was the okayest football player, I don't know. But I do feel like if I was the mediocre one at my job, the last thing I would do is stir the shit.
When he took a knee,
right under the lane.
Yeah, just so we're all clear, when the season he decided to take a knee, he was no longer the starter.
Right.
So that's a difference also. It's not like Tom Brady was the one who started all this. It was Kaepernick, who
a mediocre second-string quarterback.
But
he's a terrible advocate himself because he never says anything.
So he actually owns a nonprofit, or he runs a nonprofit that he's donated millions.
No, he's done a lot of good stuff. But I'm just saying, when it's time to speak, you have to be. If you're going to be the face of something, you need to be able to. You have to speak. You can't just sit behind and let other people talk for you.
Right.
Anyway,
all right. And Muhammad Ali was very, even in his singular speaking style, he was very articulate.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas now we have everything like the Kaepernick in Twitter sound bites and things like that. It doesn't resonate. It's no way to garner support. There you go. It's no way to garner support for a cause you're trying to promote or advocate for.
Right. All right. We'll come back to the sports angle when it comes to what Alejandro Villanueva did when we close out. But I want to move on to the biggest controversy, I guess, from an internet standpoint, which sparked the hashtag cancel Netflix. And it is the Netflix film. It's a French film, right, Veronica? French film?
Yes.
Cuties. Full disclosure, I did not see it. I watched the trailer. I read the movie. I read everything about it. I have not exactly viewed it myself. It's just time constraints. But based on everything Veronica and I heard or talked about prior to us starting to record this, I will make myself watch it against all reasonable things in my head. But I feel I owe it to this discussion to actually view it. But Veronica, please tell us about Cuties and what, in your opinion, after actually watching the movie, that it actually is.
So I had no interest in watching it until I started seeing the hashtag cancel Netflix phenomenon, right? And I'm always interested in what the fuck's going on, right? So I watched the movie, and I will say off the bat, it's really uncomfortable to watch. Is it child pornography? Absolutely not. So I just want to get that off the cuff. So when I started reading about what the movie was meant to portray, essentially the female director, the French female director that directed and wrote this movie, was from what I read and from what she stated in a couple articles, basically she was at an event. She saw these 11 and 12-year-old little girls doing a dance performance. They were gyrating and dancing really suggestively. And she was like, what the fuck? Like, this is so inappropriate. And from there, went and interviewed, like, took the next year and interviewed hundreds of little girls, preteens, and basically like trying to understand what the world looked like through their lens,
right,
and why they behave this way. And, you know, what she found was this really sort of sad and I'm going to say sad, right? Because it's this really conflicted place that young girls find themselves in, where they're still too young to understand the ramifications of their actions, but they're old enough to mimic adults.
Right. I think that's the thing I had. Old enough to mimic, not old enough to understand.
Exactly. And so they're seeing these like pop stars, these girls on TikTok, these girls on Snapchat, these girls on Instagram, and they're doing all of this provocative and suggestive stuff, and they're getting likes and they're getting comments and adoration, right? It's what it looks like online to them in their mind, and all of this attention, and they're emulating these things, not realizing the consequences of their actions. And this movie does a really good job of showing that. So the movie kind of circulates around this little girl who's from a Muslim family, very conservative, and she's, you know, entranced by these other little girls that she sees. They're popular, they get along with the other kids, and she's kind of she's kind of outcasted. She's not cool, she's not popular, but these other little girls are doing all of these suggestive things, and they have a following and they have friends and they're popular and they're cool. So she kind of starts falling into that. And then, you know, obviously the movie sort of shows how this entire thing derails, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ruin the end because a lot of people aren't going to watch it anyway. I know, I'm sorry. But the little girl basically like completely freaks out and realizes like, this shit's not for me, and goes back to being a little kid. Like the movie ends with her like jumping rope with her friends, like in like normal clothes, when she was wearing like a crop top and like booty shorts. And for me, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, no, finish your thought, because I'll jump in before.
Yeah, I was going to say that this movie really resonated with me for two reasons, right? Like, one is somebody who comes from two completely different cultures. Like, I was raised in a fairly conservative Hispanic household where it's like, oh my God, like I didn't wear shorts until I was 18 years old and I moved out of the house. Like I went to Catholic school. It's like skirts below the knees, like the collar that, you know, so that nobody can see anything. I hid my tattoo from my dad. My first tattoo that I got when I was 20 years old from my dad for like 2 years. I told him it was henna. Like, terrified of my parents.
I was gonna
right?
say, you got a few since then. But
yeah, I've had a couple. They're fine with it now, right? They've already realized I'm a lost cause. And so like but like now I see, you know, and I can't imagine anything outside of that. Like, to me, I was a kid. Like, you know, we did do dancing and we did emulate the Spice Girls, but I never dressed like skanky. You know what I mean? My parents would have never allowed that. You know, we'd like put on, you know, a lot of like colored lip gloss and pretend it was lipstick, but like that was kind of as far as that would go, because I was in a pretty strict household. I go to Walmart now and I see little girls in fucking crop tops and ass cheek softy shorts walking around, and I'm like, with their parents, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
So that's my thing with this whole movie. And Kristina, I'm going to come to you next, because again, I kind of want to hear the actual female perspectives on this, because Ron and I, last I checked, we're not females. But my thing with what you just touched on is, because again, if anyone doesn't realize at this point, I have a 14-year-old daughter. She does not, fortunately for me, she's not like this. She doesn't participate in these things. She doesn't idolize social media. She's just kind of to herself, which I enjoy, and I'm glad. And I don't know how long it'll last, but I'm grateful at this point. But my thing about this movie is, and the parents that you describe in general, is like, this is a parental issue. Like, why would you ever allow your kids to do this? And I think based on the clip you sent us from that, what was it, Dance Moms or?
Yeah.
Well, is that the right name?
Dance Moms, yeah.
Dance Moms. Okay, so
seasons of Dance Moms, and like these little girls dressed up as fucking Las
Vegas
showgirls.
So
and, like,
watching that
and
thinking again, like it's the parent issue, and I'm after I watched the Dance Moms click, it totally jogged my memory of a woman I used to date who had her kid. She was like 5, I think, at the time we were dating. And she had her in all these like beauty competitions, but they weren't normal ones. They were like really odd, you know, because they're dressing very similar to what we're seeing in that. So Kristina, what is your takeaway on this phenomena? Like, do you think this is something that's super prevalent? Is this something you experienced growing up? What's your take on it overall?
Yeah, so I watched this movie 2 days ago because I knew we were going to talk about it. And, I really love the message. I loved that age. Well, maybe not 11, but I would say middle school. That was, but I mean, middle school is not too far off. These girls were in 5th grade or 6th grade. And I loved it. And I kind of went through my own transformation too. And it was super fast. I remember my dad bought me my first pair of baggy jeans, and it went downhill from there very quickly.
Baggy would be great.
Yes,
yeah, baggy would be great.
I won't get too. What's that?
No. Keep going. There's a delay. Just go for it.
Okay. And so I really loved the message, which is that growing up as a young woman in today's world is really hard, especially if you've got immigrant parents. You've got Cardi B talking about her, what, and and you've got social media. I mean, thank God I didn't have Twitter and Facebook, but so the message is really good, but I think there were just too many crotch shots. There were just too many crotch and butt shots. And I would look over at my fiance, and he would be sitting there just sort of like cringing.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, he looked kind of guilty, like I'm not supposed to be watching this. And he's not a creeper. So we just put it out there. But I think he just felt uncomfortable, and I think I was uncomfortable too the first couple of I actually think the middle scene where they're on the steps was worse than the end, because by the end I was completely desensitized. And so I think that the poster and the trailer showing them in really sexy clothes and wearing makeup and posing in very provocative poses, and they're obviously very young. I think the lead actress was 11 when she was casted and acted in the film. And I first learned about the movie when I was just sitting here at my desk, our kitchen table, typing, and my fiance is like, this is weird. I'm like, what? And so he comes over, he shows me a Facebook ad, and I'm like, yeah, that is kind of strange. But so it was, and he doesn't usually do that, like alert me to things that he sees on Facebook. Usually it's like Russian propaganda or, I guess this, but he's very random. So it was obviously, something that was kind of inappropriate, but so I love the message of the movie. And as far as like experiencing stuff like this, I mean, I don't thankfully really know pedophiles, but I think when I was like a little girl, I think 9, I was in Chinatown with my grandma, and some old creeper, he was probably like, I don't know, maybe, well, I'm not gonna give an age, but
thank you.
No offense to anyone in this, or to myself, Anyway, so I was in Chinatown, and this guy kept following me, and then he eventually like came up behind me and like pressed himself against me, and and I was too young to know what the hell was going on. I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I knew something was wrong, but my grandma, she doesn't speak English. I didn't speak that good Chinese, so it's not like I could tell anyone. But there are creepers all around, and I read this New York Times story that came out last year that said like 45 million photos and videos of child sex abuse were found or were reported to be on the internet, and that doubled from the year before. So I think my concern would be, the posters and the trailers. It's sort of like normalizing these images of very little girls, in a very sexual manner.
Yeah, and that's where my entire contention with all of this comes from, because again, it starts with the parents. It starts with what you described and the fact that it is a very real issue, and that this kind of, whether it means to or not, almost kind of legitimizes some of that. And I don't think that was their intent after reading the articles and listening to your guys' actual description of the movie. But Ron, kind of having a similar experience as myself, where do you come, like, well, what's your overall reaction to the fact that it's out? It's not like we're going to stop it. It's there.
Right. And I'm not going to cancel Netflix because
yeah, exactly.
The Last Kingdom is coming back for another season.
Season 5. Let's go.
There you go. more sword play.
And we're going to get that Braxton McCoy documentary next year. But anyway, keep going.
There we go.
Always got to drop him in. That's all.
Yeah. When I first heard about it was when everybody, the outrage crowd, the conservative cancel culture, cancel Netflix, this whole thing. And I'm going, yeah, okay. I saw the Facebook ad and everything like that. And when we decided to discuss this, I watched the trailer and yeah, it was like, okay.
The trailer, yeah.
But I get that. My eldest child is a girl, so and I have a 14-year-old granddaughter. So yeah, I'm not that old creeper there, Kristina. Okay, but still, so I've raised a girl, and and it I understand it's a challenge for young ladies to grow up.
Yeah.
And when my daughter came of age in the late 90s and early 2000s, it's difficult. And, it's not like I can go to the, Parenting for Dummies manual for daughters to learn how to do that. But
yeah.
So I agree with you, Eric. It's a lot about parenting, things like that. And I think the movie's vehicle of showing a very conservative Singalinese Muslim family was probably going too far to one side of the equation, because here are African immigrants in France. They don't even understand basic French culture, let alone modern culture, all the nuances thereof. So they were ill-equipped to guide their daughter properly and help her understand what was going on. When I saw the trailer, and some of the clips or parts in the trailer, I was reminded of, and now I'm going to show my age, so no laughing, Veronica, is the Joan Benet Ramsey case back in the mid 90s.
Oh yeah, that's yep.
And now she was obviously 6 years old or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But again, here we have, made up, to look like adults, very young children. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. So it's not a movie I'm going to watch. I'm sorry, Veronica. I'm not going to, it's like, if I want to watch Flashdance, I'll watch Flashdance.
That's a good movie.
And so, but, well, come on.
Hey, look, when you're an adolescent boy watching a movie like Flashdance growing up, come on, it's a great movie. No, all right.
But yeah. So a couple of things. The reason it's a Senegalese. I'm gonna fuck it up. I know I butchered that.
Senegalese.
Senegalese.
Drink more.
Amen.
Pinkies up, Veronica. Pinkies up.
Tell me twice.
Pinkies up.
So the reason that she chose to do that is that's actually the director's background.
Okay.
It was something she could relate to. Yeah. So like I said, it was modeled after her own life. And actually, Ron, I will say it's not conservative cancel culture. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Ann Tulsi Gabbard, also spoke out against the movie. So it's actually been like a bipartisan
cancel culture.
Bipartisan cancel culture. the trailer and poster were actually Netflix's fault. So the original poster was like the little girls doing like the shopping spree, and it was them running with bags, and it was a little bit more of a wholesome poster. And then Netflix like ran with this like trashy skank positioning, which is like the end of the movie, like where everything sort of comes to like it's, you know, like the fucking peak and obviously falls apart, right? And I think the thing that like I struggle with, right, with cancel culture specifically in this sense, and like that's one of the reasons like I kind of wanted to talk about this whole thing, was that people made a really strong had really strong opinions about this movie without ever seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what bothers me about that is the selective outrage, right? Because we had 10 seasons of fucking Dance Moms. We have Teen Mom. We have 15 and Pregnant, 16 and Pregnant. We have Toddlers and Tiaras. We have Miss Teen USA.
Honey Boo Boo.
Honey fucking Boo Boo. You know? And like,
Yeah.
the thing that we have shit like the show, you know, another show that teenage girls watch, Pretty Little Liars, and it's a 15, 16-year-old girl, and she has sex with her teacher in a bathroom, like, and they have a relationship throughout the entire show. It's like 7 seasons. And like these things are in so much media. And again, parents don't watch and like, you know, babysit every single thing their kids do. And on top of that, little girls and little boys and girls, do a lot of shit behind their parents' backs. I was a fucking angel in front of my parents. Like, but I can tell you right now, I was not allowed to watch Starship Troopers because of the shower scene. But I'll tell you what, every time I went to my cousin's house, we were like, put that fucking movie on. Like, this is titties. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
so
true.
like, you do, like, we all do things behind our parents' backs. And obviously in the time when we didn't have social media, it was maybe easier to get away with. And it wasn't as, I guess, pervasive in our everyday life. But now that all of these kids are basically being raised by their phones, all of these kids are going to school with cell phones. Like, it's so much more accessible now that I think it's harder to escape from. And there are a lot of really great apps out there for parents if you guys are concerned about like what your young kids are into, like where you guys can monitor what they're doing. And also it'll like track certain words that predators use. One that comes to mind is called Bark. Great app. It's amazing. They have like you know, actual like smart technology that like looks for keywords for either cyberbullying or predators that are like trying to talk to your kids on social media. You know, especially if they have public accounts or you know, open accounts. But I think for me, like I struggle, again, we've talked about cancel culture. Like I personally struggle with cancel culture and like how quick people are to make a judgment on something without, the point of art is to have a discussion, right? It's to evoke a response. Now, it's not always going to be a comfortable response. And I think this is maybe not a story that everybody's going to be able to relate to, but it's definitely a discussion that needs to happen because it's a lot more prevalent than people realize or think. I mean, you see parents taking videos of their kids shaking their asses and like learning how to twerk like this 6-year-old doesn't need to learn how to twerk. What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't even know who's talking right now, but I mean, I agree it's a discussion that needs to start. But I'm going to jump in here, but I think it's a discussion that needs to be had, you know, sexualizing young girls. I mean, you know, I have I have 2 nieces now, actually, and they need to learn, you know, not to want to be YouTube stars and TikTok stars. And the amount of videos that I see of young girls dancing on my Instagram is like really just disturbing. Like, I don't know who I liked or clicked on to get these videos, but anyway. So, but I think there's a way to do it that's artistic. Like, one of my favorite movies is The Professional with Natalie Portman.
Yeah,
I don't know
great
how old
movie.
she was in that.
Love that fucking movie.
Love that movie. Love it. It's just so good. But there's that one scene where she's like putting on makeup and dancing for Leon, and that's a little bit kind of like, you know, it's cute though. So yeah, a little bit weird, but that was just one scene. And of course, there were far worse, more graphic, sexually and, you know, violent things in that. But you know, I mean, of course, that movie was not about child, you know, sexualization and growing up. But I mean, I think there just should have been less glorification, less twerking, less butt shots, less crotch shots, and I think, if they used the original poster, everything would have been fine. And one of my favorite books actually is Lolita by Nabokov.
That's that movie as well. That
Yeah,
was their reference.
Vladimir Nabokov. Humphrey, yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think
I thought it was done very.
Go ahead, Kristina. Finish your thought, please.
Oh no, okay. I was saying Lolita, was like a fine literary piece of work, and you explored the very taboo subject of an adult and a child relationship. I know that sounds disgusting, but it's without I don't know, war. Well, maybe there are problems with that too, but I don't think. I think the problem with Cuties is just the imagery and just like the normalization of that imagery, but also I see on Twitter, and again, I don't know these people personally, but there's this kind of movement to normalize pedophilia. I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of like I think it's got a term for it, but it's like, oh, these are just feelings, and these pedophiles are people too. I don't know if you guys have seen that as well,
Yeah.
but so I think coming along, this movie and the images coming at the same time as this movement to normalize all different types of people is kind of a problem. It's problematic.
I just want to point out that, I appreciate Veronica bringing up that the different apps exist, but that doesn't abrogate the parental responsibility to teach your children, decent values, a moral code, knowing right from wrong, and supervising them as much as you can, and giving them the decision-making tools where they can decide, like, yeah, okay, you go off and twerk your ass in the mall or wherever kids go these days, and well, I think I'll just hang out here and sit at the Orange Julius and watch the boys go by. What? I don't know. I haven't been to a mall in like 1,000 years.
All right,
dude.
Dairy Queen, Orange Julius, whatever.
Whatever.
Oh,
Come on, the food court.
I remember twerking at the Orange Julius when
Exactly,
I was a young girl. Who does that?
Stop. You know what but you get the illusion. But the thing is, Kristina, to answer your question, what do we call that whole pedophilia movement? It's enabling everybody to own a wood chipper, and everybody's going to be able to put one pedophile through a wood chipper.
Yeah, or kind of to make a play off of that one today I saw, that commies don't surf, pedophilias don't surf, or what is that word? Pedophiles don't surf, and it's like a helicopter dropping someone out of it. It's fucking hilarious. All right, so we've touched enough on this. All right, I want to bring it back to something a little more near and dear to the goon's heart, which is some of us. Veronica, I'm still waiting for you. I know I need to actually share it, but I'm still waiting for you to join us on our goon chat every Wednesday night.
I don't even know what this is.
We'll talk about it. You'll just be severely outnumbered because they're all.
No, you won't. God, she'll put Brink in his place.
Exactly,
oh my
that's
God.
true. It actually should be.
Bam.
But yeah, we should probably get you involved in the goon chat.
I'm okay with being the lone liberal, guys. It's fine.
On the Wednesdays. No, it'll be fun. No, I know it'll be good because yeah. But anyway, so the movement has kind of picked up steam. I know it's been going on social media, especially with Twitter, for years. Like I said, when I was a drill sergeant 10 years ago at this point, we used to reference this guy, Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash's actual narrative for his Silver Star multiple times throughout our cycles. Anytime, it's always been brought up. Even as a platoon sergeant, I would bring it up to just, he's a legend. If you don't know who Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash is, and he's not just a legend in the Army, but he's definitely a legend in the infantry community. So we already talked about how Alejandro Villanueva brought attention to it on the back of his helmet as a Pittsburgh Steeler in the NFL. There's a movement going on right now through a lot of our little circle, which I am super proud to be a part of. They've had a conference call last night at like 9 p.m., with some of these legislative aides. Like, it's definitely on the radar. So I encourage everyone to please contact through the Senate switchboard your local senator in your state. Let them know that we have House Resolution Bill number 8276, which is to take up the Medal of Honor for Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash. There's about 5 days left, I think, in this last session. Ron, does that sound about right?
Yeah, until they go for whatever vacation
Right.
recess of whatever.
So
Yeah,
it's been put up by Representative Murphy out of Florida.
And Crenshaw from Texas.
And Crenshaw from Texas. So it's the House has put it up. It's
And
on the Senate at this
Mike-
point. Please, Kristina, go ahead. Yes.
Oh yeah, so Mike Waltz too. He's a buddy of mine. He's an active. No, sorry, he's not active. He's reserve, Green Beret, and he's pushing for it too. He told me the backstory was that this is something he's been wanting to do for a long time. He buddied up with Crenshaw, and then they discovered that Representative Murphy was doing something as well. So Waltz and Murphy are from Florida, and so that's kind of how it all started. And they were going to drop it in the National Defense Authorization Act, but who knows when that's going to be passed. Yes, yeah. But I think they are going a separate route because they're not sure Congress will be able to actually do its job. So
yeah,
right. And I heard that Chairman Smith at the House Armed Services Committee is sitting on the NDAA, that the National Defense Authorization Act, which is probably why Murphy and Crenshaw are pursuing their bipartisan bill separate from that in rider on the NDAA to do that. But yeah, as Eric said, everybody needs to contact their senator as well as their representative, their congressional representative. And if you don't know what congressional district you live in, shame on you. But then just, unless you live from a really large state like California with a zillion representatives, just every one of them.
Just call them all.
Yeah, call them.
Yeah, it's really.
And then what's really easy now, Ron, is what I did earlier as well. Is just they all got fucking Twitter accounts. They all got social media accounts.
Oh yeah,
just add them.
Thank God South Dakota is just. I just got 2 senators and 1 rep.
So I'm very fortunate. I'm still
for all
my
12 of you.
Yeah, my home of record is Florida, so I got Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Rick Scott, who was in the Navy once upon a time. So I think Senator Rick Scott is actually on. Is it the Armed Services Committee, Ron? Is that the name?
No, he's not on the Senate committee.
Okay.
I know, Kristina, you know more about. You're right.
Yeah,
there.
This is Kristina's avenue.
you're at the heartbeat there. Is Rick Scott on the Senate Armed Services Committee?
If it's not him, Rubio is. I know one of them is.
Well, Rubio's on the Intel Committee.
That's right, Intel. Okay.
I think Rubio is on Intel and Senate Foreign Relations. I think Rick Scott might be. I'll look it up right now.
As
we effort this search through the wonderful Google search engine.
Quick question. So I've like, was it a Humvee that he pulled the soldiers out of, or a Bradley? I always heard it was a Bradley.
Yeah, I don't think it was a Humvee. It's from the description I read, he pulled out 6 soldiers, so it couldn't have been a Humvee. It must have been a Bradley. Right. I just remember the driver caught fire. He was doused in gasoline because the tank exploded and started spitting gasoline. And then as he was as he was trying to get his soldiers out of the back of the vehicle, he eventually caught on fire and remained pulling these men out of this vehicle while he was on fire. Like, it's the definition of going above and beyond, as the Medal of Honor stipulates. And he's overdue. I hope he gets it. And I think with all of our pressure in this era, fortunately, that we live in with social media, we can make this happen way sooner than some of, as we discussed last night, Ron, the Vietnam brothers that have waited 40, 50, 60 years to get there.
So,
and it's important to point out, though, that the bill is to waive the 5-year time limitation on the initial awarding.
This was 15 years ago, correct?
Right.
What do you got, Kristina?
Yes. Okay. So I think the key people to pressure is Nancy Pelosi, because she's in charge of what gets to the floor in the House, because it has to pass the House first, as well as Adam Smith. And then in the Senate Armed Services Committee, the chairman is Inhofe. You've got Wicker, Deb Fisher, Tom Cotton, Mike Rounds, Joni Ernst, Tom Tillis, Dan Sullivan, David Perdue, Kevin Cramer, Martha McSally. Oh, Rick Scott. Rick Scott is on the Armed Services Committee. Marsha Blackburn.
Okay.
Josh
Yeah.
Hawley, Jack Reed. These are the Dems. Jack Reed, Janine Jean, Gillibrand, Blumenthal, Hirono, Kane, King, Heinrich, Warren, Peters, Manchin, Duckworth, and Doug Jones.
Ooh, I know Duckworth and Ernst are both veterans as well.
Yep.
They'd
Yes,
be good
they
to
are.
talk. Yeah, they'd be good to reach out to. I'm sure that they'd be super
And Mitch
supportive.
I read something and in that other little group that we have on Twitter there, Eric,
Mhm.
Chip said that that Duckworth is now behind the bill and the whole effort. So, which is
That's all we need.
huge.
Yeah,
Which
because
is
she's
huge.
absolutely, that's what we need. Because, like I said, this should be a bipartisan effort. All right, men, women, thank you for another fantastic episode of There Will Be Banter. Remember, you may not think like us, but you probably think like one of us. We'll catch you next week. Wait, Veronica, are you gone next week?
I am. I won't be here. Sorry.
Damn, we need to find a replacement for Veronica next week. So if you are listening and you want to hop on with us, and also what we need to do is we're going to try and pay through GoFundMe or some crowdsource. We're going to try and pay Kristina's internet bill. We love you, Kristina, but we'll fix that. All right, thank you. Please watch us on There Will Be Banter. It's hosted on There Will Be Bourbon on the YouTube channel. We'll catch up with you guys all next week. I love all of you. We must go.
Every other word. That's good, right? Thanks for having me on. This is really fun.